So, a very warm welcome to all of you. It is my pleasure to share this space with all you people through the UWC Dialogues platform. At the outset, I would like to thank Sanjukta for accepting our invitation to be a part of this session and have a dialogue with us on gender sensitization and the role of youth. Thank you for being with us. Before we start, I would like to give a quick introduction about Sanjukta. So Sanjukta Basu, 42, is a writer, photographer, lawyer, feminist scholar. She's worked with women rights organizations and held a legal practice as well. She's currently a freelance columnist and feature writer on various print and online media. She writes on women politics, minority rights, and social issues. She's pursuing a PhD on women and gender studies. The autoethnographic doctoral research deals with gender-based trolling of Indian women, radical right politics, and women's political participation. Sanjukta's literary and photography works have been published by media houses across the globe. One of India's earliest blogger and digital activist, Sanjukta's personal blog is a political tool of self-representation and feminist identity. Femina magazine has listed her blog among the top 50 feminist bloggers in India. Her unabashed The blog has remained active since 2006 and received over 700,000 unique page views. She's a Twitter influencer with over 30,000 followers and an average 6 million impressions per month. In 2009, she was awarded the TED Fellowship for Blogging and Digital Activism. A public speaker and trainer, she has delivered talks and guest lectures at TEDx conferences, colleges, NGOs, and conducted workshops on digital media and gender. Her bylines can be found on First Post, Huffington Post, Dailyo, Outlook, The Wire, India Times, National Herald, among others. Sanjukta studied BA LLB from Delhi University and is currently pursuing her PhD on Women and Gender Studies after completing MA on the same subject. She was born in Jalpaiguri, West Bengal, and grew up in New Delhi, where she now lives with her father. She never married and has no children. So thank you, Sanjukta, for sharing this space with us and welcome you to this dialogue. I request Saroja to give the keynote speech.
Why can't I see anybody else? I'm not able to see.
You see me, Sanjukta.
Yeah.
That's Saroja.
Hi, Saroja. You know, I only see myself on the screen. I don't know why.
Okay.
Because we've put you on spotlight.
Okay. I see.
Right.
So can I also like see other people here or?
Okay. So we have to fulfill that wish, Glenn.
Yeah, now I can see Sneha. That's Sneha,
Okay.
right? Okay, yeah.
Right. So Sanjukta,
Hi, Saroja.
Hi. So that was such a spectacular introduction to you, Sanjukta. I mean, I'm totally overawed by all your achievements, and you are just the right person for this forum to speak on this topic, which is so relevant in today's society, and especially in India, given the socio-political times, the situation that we live in, where women have become, are objectified to such an extent, and they are not even given secondary status if we see what's happening because of the kind of political narrative. And it is perhaps the way that today's politicians who are at the helm want the situation to be. Women, it would actually not be right for me to say that they want women to play second fiddle. They don't want women anywhere, in fact, not even playing second fiddle. So
nowhere outside the kitchen. Nowhere outside the kitchen.
Absolutely. Yeah. And in such circumstances, what is the role of the youth? You see, I am a mother of a teenage son myself, and this is an issue that we often speak of, and I miss no opportunity whatsoever to sensitize my son to this, to the issue of, what is the place of women in society. I mean, to have to speak on these lines that men women need a place in society itself is so meaningless, because why can't both peacefully coexist just as human beings? So this kind of perhaps the youth of today may not have had that kind of sensitization from their homes, because this narrative has not existed for some time. It's only picking up, coming into focus now. So perhaps the youth of today who will go on to become parents of tomorrow will perhaps do a better job as parents, and we may see a better situation where gender equality is concerned. So yes, Sanjukta, I have been following you for a while now on Twitter, and I am totally overawed by your thought process, your unequivocal yes, stance that you take on these issues. And it's a great pleasure having you here, and it's a proud moment for all of us. So, we are all ears. The stage is yours. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay. Great. Thank you so much. I wanted to know a little bit about UWC though, because I don't know much about your organization. So if you could speak a few things about.
Okay. I think, Anis, would you like to speak a bit about UWC? Anis is here, and Anis leads our content teams. And he's been here right from the inception. So the person behind UWC, he's currently traveling because he's on his way to participate in the campaign efforts for one of the by-elections. That's Siddharth. So Siddharth is not there today. Anis is the next best person. Anis, would you like to speak?
Okay.
Yeah. Hi team. Hi team. Hi Sanjukta.
Hi. So do we have a lot of participants?
So Anis, Sanjukta basically wanted to have a little introduction about UWC. Can you kindly do the honors?
Yeah. So I just got unmuted. So hi Sanjukta.
Hi.
Yeah. So United with Congress. So we started it 6 months back. So this is a platform. It has been started by the INC volunteers.
Okay.
So this is for the people who are politically enthusiastic. If they want to raise their voice, they are good at anything. The future leaders, they want to do something for the party, for the nation. They are looking for the platform. So for these kind of people, so we have started the UWC. So this is a right platform for those kind of people. So here the leadership and the initiatives. So it is all about, it is started by the INC volunteers who are not officially with the party.
Okay.
So this is to cultivate a new leadership.
Yeah. And yeah, that is amazing, and it's wonderful that you're doing this gender sensitization for and the role of youth program. I think it is, like Saroja said, it's time. We really don't talk about these issues at all when in the formative years of our our future generation. We teach them all kinds of things, but we hardly teach them how to be gender sensitive. So basically, what I'll do is I have, like, I thought of speaking about like 4 broad issues and not go into too much details. um, I will just briefly explain them, and then maybe if it's possible I can take some questions. I don't know how many participants you have and whether they'll be able to all have their mics and videos on, but it would be interesting to have an interactive rather than just a one-sided conversation. So let us, so I'll start with what exactly is gender. We keep hearing about gender sensitization. So am I audible clearly?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah. So first of all, I want to talk about what is gender. Why is it that we say this word gender instead of women? So the the word gender is used because we want to create a differentiation between sex and gender. Now, sex is something that we are born with. It's a biological sign. We are born with either a penis or a vagina, or an ambiguous sexual sex, or we can, or trans or third sex. That is a biological sign that is assigned by nature to us at the time of our birth. That's called sex, male, female, or third sex. And gender is the roles and responsibilities that are assigned to us by the society depending upon what sex we were born with. So if you were born as a girl with a vagina, the moment a child is born and the society looks that the child has got a vagina, it is said that you have to be a woman. And then you have to do everything from the moment of birth. Everything is decided by that one motive of trying to make the woman. So, women should be shy, women should be gentle, women should always be kind, and men should be masculine, men should be courageous, and men don't cry, boys don't cry, and then women should wear pink frilly dresses and men should never wear pink. All of that stereotype that we hear comes from the gender stereotype. So that's why we use the word gender to differentiate between sex, that is a biological sign, and gender, which is something enforced on us. And that's why one of the greatest feminists, Simone de Beauvoir, says the word that you're not born a woman, you become a woman. So we have to constantly perform certain kind of roles, certain kind of we have to perform. It's a performance. We're trying to continuously look or be and perform as a woman, as the society expects from us. And the moment you don't do that, you then fall into the category of deviant. And therefore in all our culture, in all our mythologies, you have the Devi and the Sita Surpanakha, the virgin horde. This dichotomy. There is always that the respectable woman who the society will respect, society will not attack and will not target, and then there is this other woman, the deviant woman, who the society will always will do violence upon, and will attack and will justify violence on them, will justify beating them. They will call them witches and Diane, and then they burn them, and then they justify all kind of violences. They have, in our mythology, they have justified the violence met to Surpanakha, the cutting of her nose, because she did something that was not expected from woman, which was her expression of her sexuality. She was attracted to a man and she expressed that, which was not acceptable from a woman. Although men are allowed to chase their romance, men are allowed to just fall in love looking at a woman from distance and then chase her until she agrees to fall in love with him. And if she does not agree, then he is even allowed to throw acid on her and ruin her life so that she cannot be with another man. So these are all gender stereotypes and gender performances, gender roles and gender responsibilities that are expected from both men and women. It is to be remembered that gender stereotypes, or all these ideas of what is to be a man and what is to be a woman, masculinity and femininity, is also very oppressive to both men and women. It's not just the women who are oppressed by these kind of expectations. So therefore, for example, there is a man who is very artistic in nature and he only wants to paint and not do anything in life. He just wants to make paintings and wants to spend his life like that, but he would be given too many responsibilities of making a family, giving grandchildren to his parents, and running and taking care of his parents and taking care of his wife. So that again is a sort of imposition on the men, because they are born as men. And when we talk about sensitization, from the very childhood, from the moment a child starts to even crawl and walk and talk, we have to stop doing these gender stereotypes. So you will notice that the most posh hospitals in the country, in India, will bring you blue balloons depending upon the color of depending upon the child who has been born. from the on the day one the child is born, they will put a pink board. As responsible parents who are young parents, 20-year-old, 30-year-old young parents who are just getting married, make sure you don't do those kind of stereotyping from a very early age in your children's life and your own life. When I go to a toy shop in the most posh urban place in Delhi, like a Hamleys toy shop, the men, the shopkeepers, the salesmen, they come and tell me, ma'am, किसके लिए toy चाहिए, बच्ची के लिए या बच्चा लड़का के लिए या लड़की के लिए? You begin defining what a child can be in their life by even giving them the kind of toys they want to play with, the kind of mythological stories we tell them, the kind of fairy tale stories we tell them. So we have to, when we talk about gender sensitization, we have to be sensitive towards the fact that we are not imposing any idea that girls should do this, are like, or has to be done away with from very early childhood. That is one of the most important aspects of gender sensitization. Then when we talk about what are the other roles of the young generation? Now the young generation should understand that that men and women are equal in terms of what kind of rights they can have in the society from the state. Now let's understand that that all our rights that are given to us, our fundamental rights, our right to right to vote or anything, right to access the public space, right to work, right to go somewhere, right to education, any kind of right that comes from the constitution or any other law books, they are given to us because we are citizens of a country. Not all rights are given to non-citizens. There are certain rights which are only for the citizens of the country. Now here is where an important learning of the important aspect of gender sensitization is that women should not be seen as, in terms of relational, they should not be seen as somebody's mother, daughter, wife, a sister, lover, or goddesses, or Bharat Mata. Women should be treated as individuals just as much as like any other males, which includes their rights, which includes their responsibilities, and it also includes their flaws. So to say things like, तुमने महिला हो के ये कैसे कर दिया, तुम महिला हो के इस तरह की बातें कैसे कर सकती हो, तुम महिला हो के एफ वर्ड कैसे यूज कर सकती हो या गालियां कैसे बक सकती हो. Or for example, a woman, and then the society tells her that, but why did you go late at night at park, you should have been more responsible. Now here what we have to understand, that if a man has the right to go out at night, which may be not the most sensible thing to do, maybe it's a mistake. I mean, even for men, let's say, why should you loiter at the middle of the night for no purpose at some random place? Don't you have anything better to do? So it's not the best thing for even a man. But if the man has the right to be flawed, to make mistakes, to do stupid things and get into trouble, so does the woman. So the woman's consequences should not become any extra just because she made the same mistake that men are also make all the time. So therefore, if the man comes into trouble, let's say he gets mugged, he gets hit by some hooligans, he's pickpocketed, the way the justice will be served to him, he will go to the police station, he will say, भाई मेरा पिक पॉकेट हो गया, मैं रात को घूम रहा था और कुछ गुंडे आए, मेरे पैसे लेकर भाग गए. तो the police will not say कि तुमने क्या कपड़े पहने थे या तुम मटक कर तो नहीं चल रहे थे, तुम्हारे पैसे चोरी हो गए. Just same way, the women should not be asked any more extra questions, because the woman has as much a right to access the public space at whatever time of the day, चाहे रात को हो, दिन को हो. So at the same time, the women also have the right to be flawed, the right to do something very stupid, not break law, not that women have the right to go and hit someone or kill someone, not that. But the fundamental thing is that women have just equal right as men to, to, to be citizens of the country, and that includes all kinds of things. Right to access the public space, right to work, right to do risky things, right to take risk even. So one of the also another aspect of being gender sensitive is that we should always remember that women have a very equal right to the public sphere, that is the world outside the safety of their home, and that women should not always be told that any kind of control that we are doing is for your own safety and your own protection. तुम्हारे अपने भले के लिए हम ये बोल रहे हैं, तुम्हारे भले के लिए तुम ये काम मत करो, या तुम वो वाला फलाना नौकरी मत लो, या तुम don't go for that kind of profession like, let's say, Bollywood, fashion industry. Don't go to a profession like pizza delivery. Don't go to a profession like a petrol pump. These days you have a lot of women in the petrol pump. That's a very good sign. But these kind of things that women are always told to, even rules are made. The government in fact makes these kind of rules. State universities make these kind of rules where women students are not allowed to stay out of the out of the campus, but male students are allowed. Now, all of these are again our fundamental right to access the public sphere and right to do away with all of these. So, but how do we do this? How do we challenge these very, very traditional, authoritative, patriarchal mindset? So, okay, so I've used the word patriarchy. I don't know if people are familiar with the word patriarchy now. There are many schools of feminism, and each feminist school in bringing gender equality in a different way. Some will say, don't talk about patriarchy, just let us all give our children, our girls, education, and that will empower them. Another group of feminists will say, education and work and finances are all that fine, but we have to first challenge patriarchy. So now patriarchy is the rule of the eldest male member of a family, and by extension of the tribe in the ancient times, and by extension the society, the office place, the university space, the government. That is why, because we are in a patriarchal society, we do ki samman is a huge deal. And especially if it is the dadaji of the house, it's like too much of a big deal. We are often met with criticism when we call out Mr. Modi's policies. We are saying कि मोदी जी के बारे में ऐसे क्या बोल दिया, इतने बड़े बुजुर्ग हैं वो तुम्हारे. So this is patriarchy. Male member of that is your grandfather, father, and then the society, and then the government, and all other public sphere. Now, the rule of patriarchy, challenging the rule of patriarchy is a very difficult thing because it comes traditionally for many, many thousands of years, and it is effectively a revolt against your own. It's like you have to talk, you have to raise your voice against your own father, against your own grandfather, your brother, your husband. So it's father, brother, grandfather, and then husband. Mothers don't take the place when the father is gone. Remember, the rule is trumped by age and gender. The rule is trumped, power is trumped by gender and not by age. When and there are some exceptions, of course, in families. Like I come from a family where all my maternal, like my mother and my grandmother were more powerful people. But yeah.
So, sorry to interrupt you, but your connection seems to be unstable. Your video has frozen for the last minute or so, 2 minutes.
But I don't know. Maybe it will be fixed in a way. Am I audible still?
You are audible, but your video has frozen.
Still frozen.
Your audio also is gone now.
Hello? Wait a minute. Okay, is it better? I don't know. My Wi-Fi must be breaking. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you now, but your video is still a little.
My Wi-Fi is breaking, but it's can we just like maybe pause and then because the Wi-Fi must be breaking, but it'll be back because I can see the Wi-Fi signals. It's just breaking a little.
Yeah, maybe you could turn off your video for a while and then start it in a minute or so, 2 minutes.
Yeah. Am I audible now?
Yes, you are.
So maybe can we maybe we can continue with the audio for a bit and then I can switch on the video.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah. So patriarchy. It's not easy to revolt against the patriarchy. That is where the role of the youth is most important. The young generation will have to slowly, in a maybe you don't have to like do it overnight, but you have to make that kind of a atmosphere. You have to build that kind of atmosphere from your own homes to challenge, to question authority. I mean, politely, you have to question everything that is being given to you from a top. कि तुम्हें ये करना है. That you must do it, you must follow it because I am telling you. So any kind of authoritative decisions that are imposed upon the young generation, upon the children, should be questioned from their own home. Maybe not drastically, maybe by not hurting your parents and all, but you have to do it slowly and slowly. We have to build a culture starting from our own home to expanding to our society, to our organizations, our friend circle, our political organizations, and I will towards the end. I mean, two more points I will briefly also say is about the political, how the politics also plays an important role in creating an atmosphere where we are able to question authority. We are as human beings, and here you must Google the theories of enlightenment and what did the enlightenment philosophers like Immanuel Kant say about how human beings should always use their own critical thinking and reason. So wait, I think I will start the video and let's see if I'm clear or not. Is the video there?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So we should remember that every human being has the responsibility to be critical thinking people, to be people of reason and knowledge and rationality. So the thing is that the moment somebody, whether it is your own parents or whether it is your boss or whether it is your political leader, when somebody tells you something, tells you to follow something, gives you some kind of order, some kind of diktat, you must use your own reason and critical thinking. Now, briefly, I will say, Immanuel Kant said that, human beings more or less know कि सही क्या है, गलत क्या है. लोगों को more or less पता होता है सही क्या है, गलत क्या है. जैसे कि अब बाबरी मस्जिद तोड़ देना कोई अच्छी बात नहीं है, वो सबको पता है. लेकिन हम सब डरते हैं कि हम वो कदम उठा नहीं सकते हैं. We always feel scared to follow our own reason, own knowledge, own understanding, unless somebody comes and tells me, हाँ, I also feel the same. This gives us the herd mentality. हम human beings जो है वो बहुत एक सहमे किस्म के लोग हैं जो तब तक इस चीज को कर नहीं पाते जब तक हमें एक it is called self-incurred tutelage. वर्ड आता है. जब तक हमें कोई आकर बताता नहीं तुम जो सोच रहे हो वो सही सोच रहे हो, हम तब तक अपने में भरोसा नहीं करते. लेकिन इसीलिए एनलाइटनमेंट थियरिस्ट ने बोला है that हमें we have to always therefore publicly talk about what we are thinking, all our critical thinking, all our reason, all our knowledge, all our pursuit of सही क्या है, गलत क्या है, सत्य क्या है, असत्य क्या है, इन सब चीजों को हमें पब्लिकली सोचना है, पब्लिकली बोलना है, एक दूसरे के साथ बांटना है. And that is how we will all be thinking and critical people instead of simply following orders that comes to us from the top. This is where the role of the youth is very, very important, to become more and more critical thinkers. Question: if at your own home, if you're a man and if your sister is given different kinds of rules and dictates to follow, if she is told कि 6 बजे के बाद बाहर मत हो, you can stay till 8 o'clock in the evening, you question that. कि क्यों she do that? Question these things, question rules, question your religion, question your government. Every kind of authority you have to question. Be civil, be legal, but question. This is one of the most important role of the youth. Now comes to the question of what is the political, how does the political establishment of a nation impacts the gender sensitivity or the women's rights or even the men's rights for that matter. There is the difference between liberal governments or liberal political establishment and conservative political establishment. Right wing and the left wing. Also, we say left and liberal and right and conservative together, लेकिन mostly politics में दो ही side होते हैं, right और left. जो राइट है वो मतलब बहुत कंजर्वेटिव होते हैं, वो पुराने ख्यालात के होते हैं, दे ऑलवेज गो बैक टू द ग्लोरियस पास्ट, दे थिंक कि 5000 पहले जो था वही सबसे अच्छा था, उसके बाद मॉडर्निटी तो बहुत खराब है और मॉडर्न चीजें सब बकवास है, वेस्टर्नाइजेशन बकवास है, so they keep going to the past. And the liberalism and the left side, which is the most liberal, which is more on the liberal side, they think of the progress, they think of modern rational outlook, they go towards the future, they move towards the future with a more progressive approach. This is बहुत मोटे तौर पे, this is not like, these are not to be taken like sum all of anything, but I'm just saying that the fundamental difference between the two kind of political establishment is how the political establishment gives individual their rights. So the conservative politics usually talks about the community, the identity, कि हम सबको ये करना है ताकि हमारा नेशन का कुछ मतलब नेशन, हिंदू, मुस्लिम, हमारा कम्युनिटी, हम दलित, मी दलित वुमन, so therefore my community, or me Muslim women, therefore me as a Muslim woman what I must do, or me as a Hindu what I must do, या एक हिंदू का क्या कर्तव्य है, मुसलमान का क्या कर्तव्य है. All the time there is this identity engulfing the individual. अब मान लीजिए मैं एक इंडिविजुअल हूँ, भाई मेरा जो मन करता है मैं वही करूंगी, चाहे मेरा रिलीजियन, मेरा आइडेंटिटी, मेरा कम्युनिटी इससे सहमत हो नहीं हो, I don't care, as long as my constitution has given me the right to, let's say, wear something or eat something. And here we get political. Let's say the constitution has given me the right to eat beef in the state of Kerala, which is allowed there. I should be able to do that without any kind of fear, any kind of shame, any kind of being shamed कि तुमने ये ऐसे कैसे कर दिया हिंदुओं के. So that means what? The individual rights is above the right of the community identity. And there are certain kind of political establishment which do not recognize that. They believe that the individual should always do what the community identity wants it to do in the furtherance of the good of the entire society. तो इसीलिए क्या होता है, अब हिंदू महिलाओं को बोलते हैं कि 4 बच्चे पैदा करो, साक्षी महाराज आ जाता है, बोलता है कि 4 बच्चे पैदा करो ताकि हिंदुओं का पॉपुलेशन बड़ा हो जाए. Similarly, maybe somebody is saying the same thing to the Muslim women. तो women को कंट्रोल किया जा रहा है, उनकी रिप्रोडक्टिव पोटेंशियल को कंट्रोल किया जा रहा है, उनको ये बोला जा रहा है कि बच्चे पैदा करो, बच्चों का देखभाल करो, तुम अगर घर से बाहर काम करने जाओगी तो तुम्हारे बच्चों को कौन संभालेगा, और बच्चों को नहीं संभालोगे तो नेशन कैसे बढ़ेगा, देश कैसे बढ़ेगा. So all kinds of extra responsibilities imposed upon the women just in the name of her community, name of her nation, name of her identity, and all of that. The kind of political establishment which recognizes the nation, the community identity over the individual's identity are always more oppressive towards the women. That is why we see that, why do we see so much violence increasing in India? Because in the last year, it was hearing this kind of rhetoric in the public sphere. Har dusra political leader from the ruling establishment are talking like this, that bahu betiyon ka unko. Abhi in the case of Hathras, there was a BJP MLA who said exactly that. That women should be more behave themselves more, therefore then they will not come even meet with violence. But this is completely nonsense. Women should have the right to be any kind of, that is even if that means she is smoking and drinking on the street, she has the right to do that, and nobody has the right to go and attack her for that. And if that happens, the police is supposed to do its job instead of questioning her or victim blaming her or victim shaming her. So therefore, when we have the political establishment of the country already looking at women as the symbolism of the community, अब ये भारत माता का पिक्चर बना दिया, अब भारत माता ही उसको मानेंगे, तो भारत या फिर देवी मानेंगे. अगर देवी जैसा तुम आचरण करोगे, देवी जैसी बिहेव करोगे, तब तो ठीक है. बट जहां तुम देवी नहीं हुए, तुमने कुछ और कर दिया, तो then they'll be like, अरे तुम, how could you do that? Now you will have to face the consequence. So women don't have to be devis. Women don't have to carry the identity of their community. Women don't have to take the burden of taking care of the entire community. They have to just be individual, and therefore the political establishment's role is very, very important in giving women complete rights. And in India, we have seen that the BJP RSS rhetoric is very, very problematic when it comes to talking about women, because they see women as bahu, beti, homemakers. They think that the women's, even the these are documented that in the RSS women branch of the RSS, women are told that your family, husband, children are more important than your job and your career. This is completely wrong. It is wrong to tell women this. What we don't understand is that जब हम ये बातें करते हैं, तो वो उसका असर जाके अलग-अलग चीजों पे पड़ता है, including violence against women, rape, acid attack, honor killing, all of that. All kinds of violence against women happen because we are not treating them as individual. We are treating them as symbols, some kind of community symbol, some kind of symbol. And this is what we call, this is my last point, this is what we call right-based approach as opposed to protection and safety-based approach. So women don't need protection and safety. Women need rights. Rights, मेरा right ये है that I should be able to go out at 1 o'clock in the night, attend my job and come back safe. You have to make the outside world safe. You have to do, the police have to do its job. The judiciary has to do its job. The government and the lawmakers have to do their job to make the world outside safe. Do not tell the woman to stay at home for her own safety, because that is a safety-based approach. That is a protection-based approach, but not rights-based approach. So women's equality should be seen from the perspective of what her rights are, not what is safe, what is protection, and all that. And very few people, very few political leaders in our country have ever used this kind of narrative, this kind of right-based narrative, this kind of words like patriarchy in their political discourses, because even the political leaders are very scared to break these issues up, because it's a political, our society is patriarchal. So in चीजों को बात करने में भी, people are very scared. But I'm very happy to say that Rahul Gandhi is one of the very rare politicians who does that. In so many years, I've followed so many kinds of political leaders who have never used words like patriarchy or as what is women's rights. Political leaders always talk about महिलाओं की सुरक्षा के लिए हम ये कर रहे हैं, बेटियों को बचा लो, महिलाओं को सुरक्षा. We don't need suraksha, we need rights. We need to be treated as individuals with full citizenship rights. And the moment any of our rights is taken, the government and the judiciary and the police should all do whatever their duty is to ensure justice and not ask the woman the questions, तुम क्यों कर रही, क्या कर रही थी, कहाँ गई थी, blah blah. So I think that were the 4 things that I want to discuss, and I can now open for the question and answers. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Sanjukta. It was indeed an insightful session. I think the best thing I liked was about, blue for boy and pink for girl and the stereotyping around that. So yes. We have a couple of questions. Some of our participants wanted to ask you questions. So one of them is Gayatri Sen. If you hear Gayatri, please go ahead and ask your question. Glenn, if you could unmute Gayatri.
Hello.
Hello, hi.
Hi, Sneha. I'm traveling. I had already sent to ma'am the question I wanted to ask. If in case you have it, could you please ask her on behalf of me?
Sure, I can. One second.
Yeah, and ma'am, it was a great time with you, and you have really like enlightened and influenced us a lot. Thanks a lot for that.
Thank you so much. I'm glad that I'm here talking to you.
Yeah, Sneha, please go ahead and please kindly ask the question which I had sent.
Yes.
Yeah,
So,
thank you.
Gayatri's question is, what should youth, women in politics, young women in politics do when they are trolled for talking against the ruling party? People or supporters of the ruling party end up, trolling women. Right from talking about her upbringing, questioning her upbringing and the kind of family she has. Because she supports the opposition. So, what should women do in such a situation?
Okay, I think this question, I mean, I am doing an entire PhD on trolling, so I don't know even where to begin and where to end. Trolling is such a menace. I mean, I don't know what to say, that no amount of the social media platform doing any kind of giving us any kind of features like muting, blocking, or any kind of things like reporting to the cops, nothing helps. Trolling is such a manner that you are bullied, harassed, and your mental peace is completely taken, destroyed, and you just cannot do anything. And we have been talking about these things for a long time. We've been continuously saying that the social media platform should do more, the police should do more, you need to have more sensitivity, but none of these have actually helped. Now, technically, what some of the tips that I can give is that in the very beginning, if you have a lot of followers coming to your timeline, if you are getting a lot of notifications, then you set your quality filters. Do not accept notification. Do not look at notifications which are from people who don't follow you, because usually वैसे तो trolls will follow you to troll you, but usually the number of people who follow you are more likely to like you. That is why they are following you, although there are always some people who simply follow you to troll you. So set your notifications in a way, give a click on the quality filter, then set your notifications to only receive notifications from people who follow you, or if you want to go one step further, you can even stop notifications from people who you follow. You can only choose to only have notifications from people you follow. There are always fallout to these kind of things, because then you might be missing out on some kind of a shout out call, like for example, somebody you don't follow or they don't follow you, but they've given a help call, like they need blood donation, or they are reporting some crime. You might miss out on those kind of notifications then. So the side effects so yeah. But for your own sanity, you could do this. You could also, I think, what I do is that at the very first instance of abuse, I block the troll. इससे ये होता है कि पहला अब्यूज तो फिर भी दिख ही जाता है, तो अगर पहले ही अब्यूज में उसने कुछ इतना भयानक बोल दिया, और बोलते भी है, आई कीप गेटिंग, आई मीन दे तो कीप अटैकिंग माय फेस, and they attack my birthmark, they attack the shape of my teeth, and whatever. So and they come up with all kind of morphed images as if they want to throw acid on my face. वो मेरी शक्ल को बिगाड़ के ना भेजते हैं. तो anyway, so the first instant, do not give them a second chance. First instant may block them if they are abusive, and if they're just generally boring, then just mute them. Don't keep reading their notifications. I sort of try to do this. If somebody is not like harmful, if they are like boring, but not outright abusive, I mute them. And if I see somebody is being outright abusive, at the very instant, I block them. Secondly, on Facebook, you have more privacy features to control who can comment on your page, on your post, sort of you are a little bit more insulated. Twitter is a far more worse place. Twitter is one madness where it's very difficult for us to control what kind of abuses are thrown our way and what we get. But my personal thing is that mute, block, and then the third option is when it is extremely objectionable, you share it, you retweet it, you call it out, you show it to the rest of the world. Do not suffer in silence. I mean, the number one rule, the number one thing that women should remember is that the trolling is exactly the same like the kind of street harassment we face when we go out on the road. किसी ने कहीं से मोटी बोल दिया, किसी ने सेक्सी बोल दिया, किसी ने वहां से व्हिसल मार दिया, बस में जा रहे हो किसी ने यहाँ से पिंचिंग कर दिया, ग्रोपिंग कर दिया. The kind of sexual harassment we face on offline world day to day, trolling is exactly that. And just like in the day-to-day life, we suffer in silence, and the moment we talk about it, we feel it is our shame. Therefore, we keep quiet and we suffer in silence. Same happens in trolling. जैसे ही हम उसके बारे में बात करते हैं, मेरे टाइमलाइन में होता है, the moment I talk about it, 10 people will come and say, अरे इनके क्यों मुंह लगते हो, ignore कर दो, low life है. The more you ignore, the more they get emboldened. Do not ignore, block them, mute them, report them, and then name and shame them and fight back and then block them. But do what you want, do what your inner guts tell you to do, to vent out your anger over a troll. I mean, of course, within your civility, but do not suffer in silence. I think that's the most important part. हमें एक बार क्यों बोला जाता है कि suffer in silence? Because the moment we bring out our problems to the larger public, the public itself feels confused कि क्या करें? अच्छा उसके साथ trolling हो रहा है तो हम क्या करें? What should we do? How do we tackle it? Because they don't know how to tackle it. They will ignore them. Do not ignore them. That is the last thing that you should do. If you are being bothered, if you are mentally having pain, share that pain. So I think I have noticed on my timeline that the maximum help, the trolls go away when other people on my timeline come and stop in support of me. So reach out, tag other women and tag me. I am on Twitter 24/7. Tag me, tell me that you've been trolled. Form your own solidarity groups. एक अपना छोटा सा ग्रुप बना लो व्हाट्सएप पे कि 4-5 लोगों का कि जहां पे किसी को ट्रोल होगा हम लोग जाकर लड़ेंगे उस ट्रोल से. That is how the troll, I've always noticed that they get more rattled and then they go away. But it's a very uphill task. It's a battle, and we are nowhere close to tackling this menace. But yeah, those are some of the tips.
Thank you. Thanks, Sanjukta. So we have D. Gautam on the session with us. He would like to ask a question. Glenn, if you could unmute him.
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, so hello everyone. So hello ma'am, this is Gautam here.
Hi.
So I basically had a small doubt. So basically, as it was regards the gender sensitization.
Yeah.
Am I audible? Yeah, so basically from the very beginning, I have been listening to this thing ki you're actually going on through the women's rights and thing. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was expecting as it is gender sensitization, we could have actually spoke about even men who are actually facing problems. And it's not just women's, right? So
yeah, like I said, gender stereotypes is also oppressive to men. So men are also told 10 kinds of things. You can't do this, you can't do that just because you're a man. So, if a man is sensitive, if a man is emotional, he should be allowed to be, soft, emotional, sensitive. If a man wants to pursue a hobby that is not seen as masculine, let's say he wants to be a painter, a singer, a dancer, and he doesn't want to do a full-time job. He wants to stay at home and wants to be a house husband. We should accept all of these kinds of what is not seen as, so when we say be a man, that itself is a problem. Why should men have any extra burden on them of being anything extra that the women don't have to be? Or And at the same time, why would women have any kind of extra burden to be something that the men don't have to be? So why should women have to be any more extra soft? And why should men have to be any more extra hard? Men can be sensitive, men can be soft, men can pursue whatever dreams they want to pursue without worrying about making a living, with it without worrying about, like, families होती हैं वो guilt trip देते हैं, they tell you, oh my god, if you don't get a job, how would you take care of your old parents, and how would you take care of your old brother, your younger brother, but how would you get your younger sister married? The man should not have this responsibility. It should not be, this is what we do in a family. We see children as, especially male children, as retirement plans, as if they were brought into this world to take care of their old parents. I mean, we have to break out of those. So so men also have those kind of gender, they also suffer from gender stereotype. Women should also at the same time remember that you can't do reverse sexism. If you feel that men have been oppressing women for many years, that may be, but that does not mean you have to take it out on the next man that you meet, that you have to be mean to the next guy. Like, and here I will say that a lot of the Me Too stories that I have heard, I felt were very problematic, and were kind of like reverse sexism towards men. I did not think that all the Me Too stories were really harassment. I felt that if a man simply approaches a woman with a romantic interest, that's not harassment. So if the woman immediately starts abusing him or yelling at him, that's not cool. So when we talk about gender sensitivity, the women should also be sensitive towards a nice, kind, gentle man who has really not done anything wrong to you. You should be respectful to that man as well. So it works both ways. And also, I would like to tell that any kind of feminism that you see on the pop culture, which is all about bashing men and which is all about, oh, we women will do this and do that, and men can go fuck themselves, and all of that kind of things, is not feminism. Nowhere in the history of feminism, no feminist has ever said that. And remember, feminism is a real study, is a it's just like economy, sociology, political science. Feminism is a course of, is academic course. It's a movement. It is a real thing. So not everybody is a feminist just because they label themselves as a feminist. So therefore, when you see some kind of rude behavior, some kind of insensitivity, some kind of biased behavior in the name of feminism, please know that's not feminism. And it's okay to call that out. Feminism is equality of women, and how to, and it's a discourse on how we gain equality for women. But it does not mean that women have to be either better than men, or that they have to bash men up, or that they have to replace men in anything, anywhere. They just have to be equal in, and like I said, citizenship rights. So yeah, that is what you mean by gender sensitivity for both men and women. Did I answer your question? Hello, am I there?
Yes, you are. I think he's on mute, so he may not be able to answer. So thanks for that answer, Sanjukta. Our next question is from Saroja. I'm asking her on her behalf. In your opinion, are Indian film industries responsible for the objectification of women? If yes, women characters play second fiddle in other film industries too. Why doesn't it become the cause for women being looked down at? What must change here?
Why must, I didn't get the second line. What was it? Why must?
So, women characters play second fiddle in other film industries too. Why doesn't it become the cause for women being looked down at? What must change?
Okay, so yeah, film industry is deeply problematic. Film industry, pop culture, not just the film industry, what we call pop culture in totality, is deeply problematic. I think almost 120 years, 130 years old film industry has barely produced like handful of films where women have not been objectified, where women are not, abla naris waiting to be saved by the hero, and except like just a few movies that we have seen in the last maybe 5-6 years or 10 years, film industry have totally objectified women and given women the only role of ma, beti, bahu, abla nari, or vidwa ma, or behan jiski shadi karwani hai, and all of that. How do we change it? I don't know. We have to tell different. We have to tell, tell the stories from a women perspective. We have to. I mean, nowadays I don't even want to look at a movie जो शुरू ही होता है from a male perspective. मतलब once upon a time there was a man and this story is of that man. The moment you start a story from there, you've lost the women's position. Women has lost their position in the scheme of things, because every story is the story of the man, his adventure, his fight, his a man is fighting against the goons, और उसकी fight में, in the fight there is the heroine, there is the mother, there is the sister, but the fight is of the man, the story is of the man, honest police officer and honest, or या फिर if they make a movie on the gangsters, then also it's a male gangsters. They make movies on the male gangsters, they make movies on the male hero, police officers, male politicians. Everything is a man. I mean, this is a male-centric world. Everything is from the man's perspective. So how do we change it? What must change? What must change is that we every day, every time have to speak up. Like, I'll just give you an example. There was this movie, 30 मार खा. उसमें एक डायलॉग था कि तवाइफ की लुटती हुई इज्जत बचाना और 30 मार खा को पकड़ना दोनों बेकार है, something like that. And it was so objectionable that just like अगर आपने किसी धर्म के बारे में, if you say something in a movie regarding a religion, like for example when a movie like Padmavat comes and the Karni Sena starts doing agitation on the road, women organizations, women rights groups in India should take out those kind of massive protests on the street against these kind of deeply problematic objectifying, sexual objectification of women in movies like these. But did it happen? It never happens. What is our women's movement doing? Nothing. Everything is on social media. I myself started a movement. Of course, I also did start on social media, and I thought, let us build a movement. And I built a page against this movie. And I said, let's call for a boycott of this dialogue and force them. But there was no traction. Nobody took it up, because even the women's movement is like so scattered. Nobody's listening to each other. We don't have that kind of a united. We don't speak up in a united way. So that is what we have to do. Every time we see that women being objectified in a movie, in a dialogue, in a scene, in a television advertisement, abhi love, the unfortunate thing is that love jihad ke naam pe aapne ek ad ko gira diya. You pull down an ad in the name of love jihad, completely non-existent thing. But you don't raise any protest. The women of this country, 50%, 49% of this country, they don't raise any objection when you see so much of misogyny in television ads. मतलब कुछ भी दिखाते हैं ad में, वो ये तो बड़ा toying है, and all kinds of. I mean, I don't even know where to begin of the ad industry. I've written about a lot of these in my blog. If you check out, I've criticized a lot of ads. Even when politicians speak, abhi 2 days pehle, NDTV made this headline out of Mr. Modi's statement, saying that the government will decide the right age for marriage for daughters. It is not the right age for daughters' marriage. It is the legal age for women's marriage. Don't say daughter, say woman. Don't say right, because government cannot decide right or wrong. Government can say legal and illegal. हमने ये तय कर दिया, this is the legal age. Now every woman who wants to marry should marry in the legal age. But not every woman is a daughter. Maybe a woman doesn't want to be a daughter. She wants to run away from her parents and want to marry on her own. She is a woman who wants to marry at the legal age, not a daughter whose parents will decide what is the right age or the government will decide the right age. So we have to, be those kind of very difficult, bitter people जो हर बात में अड़ंगा मारती है और हर बात पे आकर बोलने लग जाती है कि यार तुमने जेंडर सेंसिटिविटी नहीं दिखाई. Gender sensitivity is that we are like vigilantes. We are like vigilantes, and the moment we see a movie, moment we see a television ad, moment we see a politician say something, हम वहां पे चले जाते हैं और जाकर बोलते हैं कि ये तुमने गलत बोला, तुमने ये जेंडर स्टीरियोटाइप करा, तुमने ये महिलाओं को ऑब्जेक्टिफाई करा, please change your dialogue, please change your lines, please change your language. So we have to do that kind of critical thinking and critical review from a feminist perspective, from a gender sensitivity perspective all the time. लोग हमसे नफरत करने लग जाएंगे, people will start avoiding us, friends will say you are a spoiled sport, you cannot take jokes, you are all the time doing all these bitterness. But that's what we have to do if we want any change. Otherwise ना social niceties और politeness में हमने हजारों साल बिता दी. I hope everybody follows Hindi, right?
I'm guessing. I hope so too. There might be some who may not. But
Okay.
because you've used a mix, so it's fine.
Yeah, so I've used a mix. Yeah. So please don't be trapped in social niceties and political correctness. Call out any kind of misogyny, objectification that you see anywhere, from your home to your school, college, university, to the political leader, to films, ads. I mean, I do that and all the time, and people get irritated, but you have to do that.
Okay, so we have two more
I
questions.
saw some chat. Is there a chat coming? I saw something and then it went away. It popped up and then it went away.
So we've just put out a form for people who would like to join United with Congress. It's a Google form that we've put out just in case anyone wants to join and is not already a member. Yeah? So am I audible?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have two more questions. One is from Dr. Vrishali Raut. She's here with us on the session. Glenn, if you could unmute her. Dr. Vrishali Raut, she would like to ask a question. Vrishali, you have been unmuted. You can ask a question. Rishali, can you hear us? You are not audible in case you're speaking. So she sent me her question just so that we save on time. I will ask the question.
Yeah.
So the question is about right-wing female supporters who are abusers. I wonder how well-cultured females indulge in online trolling and sanskari females interpret violence against women in different light. How?
It comes from that mindset, patriarchal mindset. See, right-wing women are by nature patriarchal themselves. And don't think that patriarchy is only something done by men. Even the women become agents of patriarchy. And if women, and those women who believe in that kind of narrative, that kind of ideology, that women are supposed to be mothers and daughters and take care of the family and their primary responsibility is with the family, even though they may go out and do their jobs and do their education, but the primary responsibility is with the family. So naturally, these right-wing women then become equally abusive to anybody who does not fit into these ideas. And so you will notice that there are two kinds of right-wing women, and it's very this is a very complex understanding of womanhood. Actually, there are the sadhvis, there are the Pragya Thakurs and the Maya and your Uma Bhartis, who will wear a saffron and they will pose as the sadhvis and the ascetics to gain the same kind of political mileage that the male get. So if So if an Ajay Bish is a yogi, so is a Uma Bharti. Both of them are yogi. And then they both kind of command the same kind of respect. They will both say we have abandoned the worldly life and we have now become ascetics and yogis and yoginis. This is one kind of right-wing women who tend to get political mileage or power by becoming, by taking the same approach that the men of the right wing take. And on the other hand, you have the right-wing women who act very sanskari, who may be all well educated and they may have a job and all of that, but they'll still be like, oh, I always wear sari and bindi and my sindoor and all that, and I do all my karwa chauth and I do all my everything, and I will be sanskari and I will put my husband first. And everybody and any women who don't do that are not fit for the nation. They are not enough Hindu. They are not enough. They're not valuing their tradition and their culture. So they have made this kind of narrative. They've created this kind of dichotomy that apparently if you are more into, if you wear a short dress and you drink and smoke, then apparently you're not sanskari and therefore you're not fit to be part of the society and you're not doing any service to the nation and all of that. And then abuse comes naturally because then they don't respect you. It's as simple as that. And like I said earlier, that the right-wing narrative has created this traditional patriarchal society, has created the virgin whore narrative, the Devi and the Sita Surpanakha narrative, Devi and Rakshasi. So at one hand you can be Devi, then you will get respect. If you act like the Rakshasi, then you will not get respect and you will be abused. And therefore that's why so many right-wing women do come. We see, they troll, they do body shaming, they call me ugly. I've seen so many women come to my timeline. Many of them are just bots, many are like fake accounts, probably not even real women. Proper, verified accounts and all of that. So I don't know how to, the only way you can address this is to recognize that political. These women simply refuse to see the liberal political approach to how women should be, what are women's rights. They don't recognize liberals. I mean, watch this very interesting television series called Handmaid's Tale. That would tell you how far can women go in oppressing other women in the name of religion, in the name of religious, following strictly religious codes. So that show is it's mind-boggling. So if you get the opportunity, do check out that show. It's on Amazon Prime, Handmaid's Tale.
All right.
Yeah.
One last question before we.
If I am I hope I'm answering the questions. If there's follow-up questions, you can always ask.
Sure. So we have one last question. That's from Meera Ruxana. Meera, if you're here, please ask your question. Glenn, can we unmute Meera?
I have asked you to unmute. Meera, can you please unmute?
Okay, she has sent her question. I will ask on her behalf. So her question is, I am a part of the gender sensitization cell of the undergrad college I work as a lecturer in. What areas of sensitization would you suggest for the student community in this age group?
What areas of sensitization? Well, student community in colleges, I give some workshops on colleges. I think most important is you explain the difference between sex and gender. So what is sex, what is gender? One is a biological sign and the other one is a social construct. I think that has to be explained properly. And then you talk about the gender stereotypes. It's like find out as many examples of gender stereotype as we possibly can. and then we do these kind of, you know, exercises with students, and we ask them that, you know, we ask them those kind of questions like colors, how colors get assigned blue and pink, or how clothing gets assigned, how food or even music, movies, video games, toys, everything gets differently assigned. Even what kind of music we will like has a gender, you know, gender stereotyping in that. Like men listen to more rock music and women listen to more pop music. So more and more the young, the college youth, whatever is there, like whatever they follow, like they may be into sports, they may be into movies. So take those examples, take movies, take sports, take even politics, and then talk about how in every field there is this stereotype going on, and break that. Fine, ask the girls, and why can't, you know, don't you like anything else? Do you like or tell the boys, ask the boys that is it true that you only follow these kind of music? Don't you like something else? You know, so the more we communicate, the more we encourage these kind of conversations from the young generation, the more we can sensitize them. So yeah, sex and gender stereotyping, and like I already said, explain to them what is the difference between right based approach and protection and safety based approach. So that I think is the most important aspect of sensitization, gender sensitization, is that that, you know, to explain people that everybody has a right. So you are nobody to tell them what is in their safety, and therefore what they should do. Just make sure that you're not infringing on somebody's right. Another thing is that you be more careful about language. In schools, especially undergrads, colleges, be careful about languages. What if men and women together sitting at one place? Men should be careful about using abusive languages like MC, BC. Now, explain the fact that when we use these languages, those are actually an insult to women. So when we say, you know, MF, motherfucker, it's actually you're insulting the woman. So all of that. In fact, even you know, even FU is actually a very is actually a insult to women. So also screw you, FU. These are all insult to, these are all not to be used, these are against you know, women's sensitivity or gender sensitivity, and we should be very careful about using these kind of language in front of a group of people, group of girls, talking about like sex, or you know, you're talking about like uh, objectification of women. Like men do these like few days ago, these boys locker room thing came out. So I think undergrad students, especially the boys, should be told that you cannot talk about women as if they are object. So objectification, what is objectification? Like that you can't talk about their bodies as if the body is different from the individual. So don't talk about women as bodies. Woman is, it's her mind, it's her soul. That's the woman. Do not separate the woman from the body, the soul and from the body. So don't measure the body in that sense. Don't talk about the body in that sense. So all of that language and you know, and topics of discussions, pop culture. These are the areas where we need the sensitivity. Abuses, abuse words. Um, but at the same time, like, you know, if a man can use an abuse word, so can a woman. So you have to address that to both of them. You have to address that it's not just the, not that the only the men should be sensitive, the women should also be. And if the women cannot be, then men cannot be either. It has to be, the balance has to be. I think when we talk about gender sensitization to the youths presently in the current generation, we have to be extremely careful about creating a balance, because feminism has started taking a lot of bad name, and it is our responsibility that whenever we talk about feminism or women's rights, we create a balance, and we are very conscious that we are not talking about all the rights, all the responsibilities are with the men and all the rights are with the men. No, women have responsibilities, women have rights, men have responsibilities, men have rights. We should remember that. We should always remind that to everybody that we're trying to, you know, sensitize on these issues. So yeah.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Sanjukta. I think you've been very patient. We've gone past our scheduled time, but you have taken
That's okay. I'm happy
time
to
to
actually do
answer
this.
all the questions that our participants had. So thank you once again. I would invite Niyati to give the conclusions for this session.
Thank you so much, Sanjuta madam. It was amazing to have you here. And I think we all just had like, a deep felt inside our hearts about each and everything whether you said, whether if it's for men or women. And the most wonderful thing that you just said about is like looking upon gender, like it should be kind of equal, not like, as the last statement that you made about the responsibilities and rights. I
Yeah,
really
your
love that.
rights and responsibilities are the same. Exactly. Yeah.
It's really amazing. And so, I mean, when we talk about the law and the legal rights, it's actually, so it's looked upon, so whenever we say about the judiciary, so women are always, seen, and men feel that judiciary is always in favor of women. So it's not like that, and we have to see everybody
Yeah.
equally.
This is one more thing that I would want to add. Like when we talk about civilization, we should talk about rights and responsibilities being equal. However, there is always this counter argument that then we are thrown at that. Oh, then why do you have reservation? Why do you have? Why should you have women-centric laws like domestic violence acts? Now we need that. Yes, today when we're talking to today's generation, we will talk about equal rights, equal responsibilities. But at the same time, because of a history of oppression, we have to first create an equal footing, an equal level of. Let's say there is a racing over here, and if you tell the men that you have to start, the men had already started running, and the women are only started to running now. The men have already gone 5 kilometers ahead, and now the women have started to run. At that point, you have to stop the men. जहां पे भी है उनको वहां रोक लो और महिलाओं को आगे आने दो. Tell the women to come this 5 kilometers. Stop the men at certain point. The men will feel that we were running and now we have been stopped. This is not fair. Why are we being stopped? But they have to stop because the women have to first reach the point where the men have already reached, because they started running at least 300 years ago. At least 300 years ago, the men started getting their rights. They got their right to vote. They got their right as equal citizens. The invention of democracy and civil rights happened 300 years ago when men got their rights, but women did not. So women ka jo everything started 200 years ago. So humne at least 200 years later we are doing everything. So therefore we need those affirmative actions, which is called reservation for not just women. And here we talk about SC, ST, Dalits. The same logic applies, that you need affirmative actions or reservations from the government to first help the marginalized communities and gender to reach that position, and then we will start this race as equals once again. So I think I thought that it was important to say.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I was always your fan, and now I'm becoming more.
Come on.
So, we were definitely looking forward to have some more sessions with you, ma'am, in the coming time. Also, and we definitely look up to see, and our youth of India till now, they make a difference, and they really kind of, treat and see everybody equal, and the like they're not supposed to be judged or anything in whatever they do, whether it's a man or a woman. We're definitely wanting to see the day, and hope we are soon going to see. Our youth is smart and intelligent to understand these things. So, madam, it was an amazing session. And thank you so much, Sneha, for organizing this one. Thank you so much, UWC. Thank you so much, Siddharth. It was amazing, madam. So, yes.
Niyati, I have something
Yes,
to say.
Anil.
So, yeah. Thanks, Sanjukta, and thanks all the members for attending this meeting. So, for the people, see, to raise your voice and to raise some point, you need strength. With an individual, we can't do more. But with the team, we can do something more, which will have an impact. So, for the people who are interested, who want to join the UWC, so I have posted the link there to fill the form, and also a link to join our Telegram group as well. There you can join and you can contribute as per your convenience. Like you can join our chapters, that is for the ground. We do have 2 chapters, one for Gujarat and Karnataka. If you want to build your own chapter, then also you can do. And if you want to be the part of digital team, if you want to contribute in writing the content and for the research and designing, so you can join with us. Kindly fill the form.
Thanks, Anis. Thank you, Sanjukta. Once again, thank you to all the
Thank you.
participants for being a part of this session. And I announce that the session is over and you can leave the meeting. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you
everyone.
so much.
Thank you so much.